Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. Thanks for stopping by. If you like what we make here, please do us a huge solid and hit the like and subscribe button down below. We also live stream the podcast every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, and I host a video game live stream on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central, so come by and hang out. If you're feeling extra giving, please check out our Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the show. Mind Gap Podcast. Welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin.
And we have a wonderful guest joining us this week, coming from the Unranked Podcast, also a talented, just content creator in general. Please welcome Tom Caswell.
Hey. Oh, whoa. Was not expecting sound, although I should do, because my podcast has a bunch of sound effects and sound bites and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You're so welcome, Tom. And let me tell you, we have nothing but highbrow soundboard audio clips here. So I hope you're prepared.
I don't know if you've ever seen an episode of the podcast where we've used Tuna 3000. So one of our on Unranked, Tuna is one of our hosts. And Christian, the creator of Unranked, he took it upon himself to program a soundboard with clips of Tuna that he cut out, and just like, so it's just catchphrases and stuff like that. But there's so much that you could like probably like have a half sentient AI like become him. Yeah.
We definitely prided ourselves on that. We pulled a lot of quotes out of context from podcasts and from game streams, and they actually, when we were on Twitch, that used to be something you could cash in, is play sound effects from people. There was, some from our players, and we kind of just warned people like, hey, just so you know, you say something out of context that we find funny, it might become a soundboard drop. So just so you know,
There you go. That's pretty good.
But to the folks who don't know you, Tom, tell everyone who you are, what you do, where they can find you online. We'll do that again at the end of the show, but I want people to know right now who you are and why they should check you out.
Sure. So I'm Tom Caswell, aka Great Britom, on everything. It is great because it's I'm never worried about it being taken on something. You know what I mean? I only recently signed up like within the last like year for a TikTok, right? So that app was tremendously popular and huge before I even jumped on it. And like, I didn't even think for a second that someone would have taken it. So that's great. Anyway, so I'm kind of all over the place. My primary job is I run the social media accounts for Input and Inverse, Input being a kind of tech and culture website, and Inverse being entertainment, gaming, and science. And I write for both sites as well. I am a video producer by trade. I've worked in video or writing at like almost every major digital media publication, it feels like. I'm a part of the Unranked Podcast, which we've been doing since 2016. So we're coming up on our 6-year anniversary, which is really cool. Nice. We've done 300 something episodes. We're actually very close to where you guys are at. This is 330, right?
This is 330, yeah.
Yeah. So we're and you've done it every week.
We were from like 2 or 3 weeks, we've pretty much been pretty consistent with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing it for just a little less, longer than you guys have. So that is kind of that's the central hub for all of my content creation. But, I Twitch by myself. I create videos for Unranked Podcasts, YouTube. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And if you are even remotely interested in games and gaming, you should absolutely check out Unranked Podcast. Tom and Tuna and Dan and Chris. Christian. Got it. Dang it. I was like, I'm terrible with names, and I was doing well, and then I doubted myself on the last one.
No. You nailed it in the end.
But anyway, like you guys are so great at, not only are you super entertaining to listen to, but you also are incredibly knowledgeable in gaming stuff in general. I was telling Justin, I listened to the episode where you and Christian had gone to the Game Awards, and you were breaking down the categories. Like you could have been top-notch Oscar folks who are breaking down the movies and, doing, like, you guys are just like going through anything. I'm like, I don't even know what games these are you're talking about. I know a couple of them, but in general, you're like, oh man, best sound design. Obviously, it should have been this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take your word for it.
I do make it my mission to play a lot of different games. And it usually means that I don't finish a lot of games. I usually end up getting to a point where I feel like, I'm my heart is made up, kind of. That's kind of like where I see. And sometimes that means I do finish a game. Sometimes that does mean like I see something through to the end, like Guardians of the Galaxy last year was a game that, and it's something that I mentioned in that, like the writing. It was so deserved best writing last year. That was a game where I was like, I am not going to be satisfied until I finish this story. So yeah, I play a lot of video games, and it's really funny how much I like little details I'm aware of and know of about like the development cycle of games or a different developer and their history and things like that.
Yeah, I feel like for a while I was like that on a lot of movies, especially like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was like, all right, this year, here's the movie slate, that what's coming out when and who's going to be doing what. And I was just so in tune with what was happening. And then, I don't know, I think the pandemic kind of ruined a lot of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Still haven't seen Spider-Man. Because
right.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's been spoiled in proportion already to me in a lot of ways. But
I mean, that movie was spoiled like 2 years ago, I feel like.
I also agree.
Almost every detail about it from, and me just saying that is a spoiler because everyone's read the rumors and all the leaks. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I'm impressed. And so, yeah, again, if you are even remotely curious or you want to learn more about games and what's going on, check out Unranked. Very entertaining, fun stuff. And you guys, I'm always impressed at the games you guys come up with to play during the episode. Well, it's very entertaining. That honestly, a lot of shout out to Chris, me, Tuna and Dan, we come up, the three of us separately come up with a game every now and again, but Chris is able to crank them out. And, a lot of them are not always hits. I'm going to be honest. A lot of them are like, this idea is great in practice, but when you actually do the game, it can be absolutely infuriating, but it always makes for good content. Just us, getting mad at Chris for designing the most, ridiculous game or whatever. Those are always, but they're always fun to play. And when there is a gem, it's great.
Yeah, for sure.
What's been the hardest game that you guys, the one that you cursed him out the most for?
The hardest game is a game he made called Russian Roulette. It is, I think, a hybrid between the most difficult game that he's ever made. The Rihanna. It's the most difficult game he's ever made, and it's the most frustrating to play. I personally feel like it's the one where there isn't a lot of laughing. So there's to put it in perspective, for example, there's another game called Game Busters. All right, Game Busters is basically if you've ever, oh my god, this is such a deep pull, the Ricky Gervais show, right? Way back in the day, like the one that they played, the one, not the podcast, the radio show that they did. They would play this thing called Rockbusters, and it was like you basically had to guess a musical artist or a band name. So for example, if the answer was Tony Bennett, okay, the clue was that part of the foot and that bit of the leg, you need to throw it out. And so it's Tony Bennett.
Oh wow. Wow.
So we do that, but for video games. And so one of them was like that expert. he is, he's a wizard in the kitchen or something like that. And it was Maestro Chef and Master Chief. So we do that. That one's fun. That one's really fun to play. And like, when he's reading out the clue and we're just like completely baffled as to what he's saying, it's funny and we're laughing. Yeah. Russian Roulette is this one where we have 6 attempts to guess a game, and we just get like one-word clues, and each of the clues get progressively easier each time, and are worth less points, right? The more clues you need to get. And it's just us sitting there like, how are these, what is going on? And, Wolf's Blood in the chat brings up, ask him about the Rihanna answer. So the other thing is I really forget where this started, but so often in every game that we do, if there's clues involved, usually every week there will be a clue that is just Rihanna. And you have to figure out, like, okay, is that based on the fact that she started in the movie Battleship? Is it based on the fact that, shine bright like a diamond? Is it based on Umbrella? Is it based on who she's dated? Is it based on her clothing line Fenty? The options are numerous.
Wow. It's basically it's a nothing clue. You're like, thanks for that.
Yeah, but sometimes it can be like the thing that like you're like, I have it,
That's amazing.
So anyway,
I was a big fan of the game where you played where Dan, I think, would describe what was happening on the cover of a game.
Yes,
and you guys had to guess the game based on that.
Came up with that,
which I was like, wow, good. I don't know the cover art enough for any of that stuff, so that was very fun to listen to.
Yeah, that one's like a really good one. It's fast. I find it easier than some of the other games that we play.
For sure. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, we have so much to talk about, but before we do, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. First things first, if you want to support the podcast, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/mindgappodcast. You could be a supporter like Wolf's Lore, or Richie Armor, or Zenny, or Slotty Bartfast. All of the wonderful Patreons, thank you for supporting us. We appreciate you. Also, if you want to join the Mind Gap community, check out our Discord server. You can check out the link in the description down below. Join us. Be part of the cool people like Wolf's Lore, like Noah, like Zenny. Meet all of us. Hang out with us. Play games. We set up game nights. We have a good time. Come hang out with us. Check out our merch on redbubble.com for all of your Mind Gap needs. And last but not least, we do stream live on YouTube, youtube.com/mindgappodcast on Tuesdays live for the podcast, and Saturday nights I host a video game stream right here as well. So please check us out on all that stuff. All right, now that that's done, let's talk about the most important thing, one of the most important questions of the night. One of our community members, Zenny, asks all our guests this, and this should be really easy for you, Tom, because I know your credentials. The question is, what is your favorite Pokemon, and why is it Snom?
This is so serendipitous because of our podcast. I don't think we've come up. So, long story short, we talk about every number of each episode on our pod refers to a number in the Pokedex. So we're slowly working our way through the Pokedex. We're in the middle of the Hoenn region right now. Snom, if I remember correctly, is this just like you know what? I have no idea what fucking Pokemon this is. I don't know.
The only way I could really describe it is it looks like the world's most adorable fuck pillow. That's kind of the way I would categorize it.
Oh, Jesus, you are correct.
Yeah.
That is not too far off from the truth. So this was, this is a Sword and Shield Pokemon. I actually like Frosmoth, which is its evolution. Pretty solid evolution there. I mean, it's going to be a boring answer. It's either like Pikachu or Charizard. And it's just because, like, just iconic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, yeah. Any of the recent ones. Oh, I really like from one of the recent ones. It's this like dragon Pokemon. And it has like rockets on it. It's so sick.
Well, how can you not like that?
Yeah, it's called Dragapult. And
of course it is.
My new favorite one.
Yeah, it's really sick. It's like this kind of floating dragon, and it has this big triangle head, and then it has torpedoes. It's very cool.
It's like a B-52 bomber grew a body.
Yeah, exactly. Grew a big tail. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It is a really good Pokemon. I actually like a lot of the new ones from.
I know absolutely nothing about Pokemon. Whenever anyone talk, like today, Noah was streaming and he did the whole like tiering system of all the Pokemon, and I was sitting there just going like, I don't understand what anything that's happening. This is a whole dimension of things that I think I was a year or two older than when the craze was. So when it hit, I know for a fact if I'd been about 1 or 2 years younger, I would have been in it. But I was at that age where I was like, that's for kids. But I was also a kid, and it probably wouldn't have been cool to have Pokemon trading cards. Probably would have gotten beat up in rural Missouri where I grew up. So
100%.
When people talk about it, I'm like, oh, this must be what it's like when I talk about games to my wife or to people that don't know anything about these games, or when I talk Dungeons and Dragons to Justin, and he's like, I don't know what any of this means.
That's not originally, yes, but that's changed now.
Because I keep talking about it, and slowly, bit by bit,
you're wearing me down.
A little bit of it's sticking there. So, you know.
Yeah. I have no resistance to D&D anymore. I've given in. I'm like, sure.
Good. Great. So there you go, Zenny. I hope your answer suits you and you're satisfied. She's always one of the first things to ask those questions, so I'm glad. I was like, this will be a great question for Tom. He'll enjoy this. But I want to start also with kind of like, you are obviously, I would consider you an expert in the gaming world. You understand the concepts of it very well. And I just, kind of kicking things off in that realm, I consider myself a casual gamer. Justin, what do you consider yourself in the gaming?
I am aware that video games exist, and I have played them in my past.
Yes. So
that's where I'm at with video games.
There we are.
I enjoy video games. I just never find the time to play them. And so I think that's kind of where I lie.
See, Justin doesn't prioritize gaming. He puts his time towards other things like video content creation and script writing. Whereas I'm like, I've got spare time. Hey, the Avengers game's on sale on Steam for $18. Let's see if it's as bad as everyone says. It's not great.
It's really funny because I'm actually working on a script this year. I'm working on something. Yeah, I went to school for film and video, and like making movies was originally what I wanted to do, and then like my viable, kind of like marriage of video creation and gaming, and also like a way to make money was digital media, which in hindsight was really short-sighted because it's a cesspool of not making any money at all. So I haven't made something myself, worked on a set that I wasn't running for years at this point, and it's my 30th birthday this year.
Well,
and so
happy early birthday.
Thank you. It's not until March, so we got a little bit.
Happy early birthday, Tom.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm working on something. I hope to shoot it this summer. So it's cool to. I'll have to send you a draft.
I would love to. Yes,
that's awesome. I don't want to speak for Justin, but he and his partner Drew, they have a production company, 2 East 8th Productions, and they've been producing some stuff, which is really, really cool. And I'm just happy to be like,
hell yeah.
I'm a side person when I'm watching it. I'm like, cool, go Justin. I'm doing a video game stream this Saturday.
The other thing that has consistently kept me down from gaming is the fact that I am a Mac person, and Macs just, unless you're gonna spend, 10 plus grand, Macs just are not gaming computers. They just don't have the oomph necessary, and so it's been a sore spot, I know, with the community. A lot of people have been telling me to get off the Mac train. So
we'll see. I mean, I don't have my own personal Mac laptop anymore. I just have my work one. I've definitely been eyeing those new MacBook Pros, but I honestly, I do a lot now that I have like a gaming PC. Like I do a lot of video editing on here, specifically because I have, if So you guys are on a 16:9 monitor here. I actually have a 31:9 ultra wide monitor here, and just being able to see a Premiere Pro timeline in that size and like that much info, like
dream.
This I could probably edit it better on a Mac, but like just being able to see the timeline is a dream. But the other problem with Macs though is that they have very powerful graphics cards. They're just kind of not built for gaming, and even if you install something like Windows, like the problem is that these they're like slightly altered, slightly custom GPUs. So like finding the correct drivers and all of that, like the optimization is just like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Not to mention that a lot of those games just don't run on Macs either. So trying to find a game that you can play co-op.
Because after I think it was High Sierra or one of the, I don't remember which one, Catalina, they did away with 32-bit. Everything on the Mac now has to be 64-bit. So any 32-bit games. So I had a few select games in Steam that when I would jump on, Doug and I would play, and I have 2 games now that still
Tabletop
work.
Simulator is one of them.
That is
we
one
can
of
do
them.
that.
However, it makes my computer almost blow up. I started coming out of it the last time we played D&D.
Oh man, Noah says watching y'all play It Takes Two would be a dream. I would love to play that game with you, Justin. I would love to. It's basically like
know what that game is.
It's basically kind of, we talked about playing Portal together. It's problem solving. It'd be so much fun. You and I trying to solve problems together. It's also a game about divorce.
Hey, I know that.
But yeah, it's a great game. I've watched people play it. It sounds really good. But anyway,
it's fantastic.
That being said, you, Tom, being an expert in the world of games, from your perspective, in your opinion, what are the elements of a perfect video game?
Sure. It's a question I've been thinking about. I think that there's 2 answers to this. Firstly, it depends on what you're going for, like what genre you're building. And I think, depending on the genre, it defines kind of what the traits are that you're going for. So if you're going for a first-person shooter, the gameplay has to be the strongest aspect to it. There are some really great first-person shooters with some really dumb as shit storylines, and it doesn't really matter, right? Because the gunplay and the gameplay is so much fun. On the other hand, if you are going for like a third-person action game, for example, I'm replaying Horizon Zero Dawn right now in preparation for its sequel, Forbidden West, coming out next month. Long and short of it, if you don't know about it, it's basically a game set in the far-flung future. Humanity has collapsed, and we're basically in a caveman, Neanderthalic-like state. But there is all this leftover machinery, specifically robot dinosaurs. So you have, this mixture of all this, and it's a big open world. And this is a game that we played on stream the other day, and it was because I just wanted to jump in because I remember kind of feeling that the game felt very clunky. And going back in, it really is. Like the animations, the facial animations are really bad. The character doesn't control as well as you'd like them to. But the story just like pulls you along. And so for that game, I was originally just going to jump in to replay and check it out and not really have any intention of finishing it. But now I'm like, oh man, I forgot how good this story is. And so, for a game like that, I think you really need a strong story. Personally, if I had to build my perfect video game, I would say that it is something akin to The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay. And
I'm not saying that that is a perfect video game or even the best game I've ever played, but I think it hits so many of the elements that I am looking for. A really strong, interesting, complex story. I really like third-person action games. And then the other thing is I just don't have as much time for these amazing open world games that I just love to lose myself in. And I feel like that game does a really good job of being very linear, but also, not feeling like I'm just walking through a specific corridor. Like I can explore here. There's something cool to see over here. And that it's not an open world by any stretch of the imagination, but there are like side things that you can find and upgrades that you might not come across if you just mainline it. God of War 2018, I also think is very similar in that vein, and maybe I should have gone with that because I do think that is like a perfect video game. I don't think that game has very many flaws at all, and I'm very excited for the sequel this year. So yeah, if you're talking about in terms of, you know, what aspect needs to be the most important, right? It depends on the game, but I would say something akin to a God of War is, to me, the ideal of perfection.
That's awesome. So you mentioned like first-person shooters in particular. You said, can you think of a first-person shooter that actually had a really good story? Is there one that stands out to you? Because I feel like nowadays a lot of those are all about, you know, let's have good, fun gameplay and let's get to the multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, I think with recently, I think that all of the Halo games, for the most part, have been of at least a minimal quality of good. Even the lowest ranked ones, like 4 and 5. In fact, Halo 5 Guardians, historically the most derided of all the Halo games. What it does with some of the characters and where some of the characters go in that, I actually find to be really interesting. And so I've been very excited for Infinite. And that is a game, you know, talking about gaming perfection, I find it struggling at times because they decided to be like, cool, we're going to make this open world, which is a lot of fun to play, but it does get in the way of an actually very interesting story. And so if anyone has been, you know, looking for something like a first-person shooter with a great story, I do think that Infinite is one of them. I think that the Wolfenstein games have been, Wolfsblood actually just mentioned them in chat. Wolfenstein, New Colossus, and New Order were fantastic. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't done so. Man, like now I can't remember a single first-person
I'm sorry
shooter.
To put you on the spot. I think one that stands out for me, I don't play a lot of them because I don't know, just nowadays, like they all seem like you played one, you played them all. I grew up on some older, like I just don't do well, especially with the multiplayer stuff. I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother with this. This is just gonna end with me being really sad about my abilities. But Bioshock Infinite was one of the ones that stood out to me. I got on that train way late, but when I finally played it, I was like, wow, this is a very interesting story, very interesting game, awesome ending. And it really stood out to me. And I'm not a Bioshock fan. I didn't play the first one or anything like that. But my brother was like, dude, you got to check out this game.
Oh, you got to play Bioshock 1. Bioshock 1 is, I think, again, if we're talking about like kind of flawless games, I really do think that is one of them. It also holds up really well. I think I love Bioshock Infinite, and I was very into Bioshock at the time, and I had a very personal experience playing Bioshock Infinite. But it's kind of one of those things that, like, I don't, you know, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about, and especially as someone who absorbs a lot of other people's content and things like that, you know, I have re-examined Bioshock Infinite to kind of see, you know, what critics, you know, bring up, and like, oh, that's a really good point. Like, I was just so emotionally attached to that game when it came out. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So, but I do not feel that way about Bioshock, and I don't think anyone really is out there like disagreeing that the original Bioshock isn't a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So I do recommend checking out the original, and it's a quick game as well. It's like 8 to 10 hours at most. So
that's not
even
bad.
For someone who's not super into gaming, I have heard throughout my years many people refer back to Bioshock as being one of, like, it's like a cornerstone game in the history of gaming. What for the uneducated or the uninitiated, what does make that? What made that stand out heads and shoulders above everyone else?
Well, I think it speaks to what Doug brought up about good stories in first-person shooters. You know, this was mid to late 2000. It was 2007, right? So we were just kind of, I mean, Call of Duty was less than 2 years old at the point. Like, the modern idea of a shooter had like just happened. Halo was only like 6 years before or something like that. And
God, this makes me feel so old.
Yeah. So I think that it was, other than maybe Halo, the first person shooter to be like the narrative is actually fantastic. I think also because so the long and short of Bioshock is basically someone's in a plane crash over the ocean. They are swimming and they find this lighthouse, and when they go to the lighthouse they go down an elevator into an underwater city called Rapture, and it's basically this libertarian, obviously originally planned as a utopia, but like eventually fell to a dystopic fate, and you are just kind of making your way through trying to get back home. And I think a lot of things about the big thing is there's a big twist kind of halfway or 2/3 of the way through the game that is revolutionized, I think, a lot of what people thought about when it comes to gaming story, and like not only gaming story, but how gaming story is built into the gameplay of the game, and like that marriage between story and gameplay. It was, you see it a lot more often, but it's because of Bioshock that I think made people realize that you could intertwine those two in ways that I don't think previously people really thought about.
Because you would have the gameplay, and then you would just have a cutscene that you had nothing to do with, or it felt very disjointed from the actual game. Just married them a little bit closer.
No, not necessarily. So, I'll try and be as light as possible on spoilers because I do think it is worth experiencing. But in the game, there is someone who's speaking to you over the radio and is telling you to go do this, to open this, and then you can make your way through here and like all this stuff. And then you kind of discover that that character is manipulating you to do these things. And from a gameplay standpoint, as a player, you realize, like you were doing those because that was the purpose of the game. That was the purpose of the gameplay, was cool. This is my objective and I have to do it. And they use that like, objective based actions, and they intertwined it with the story and that's like why your character's motivations. And, so I won't say much more than that. I may have already given away the goose. It is also very old, so like, it is 15 years old. Wow, it is the 15th anniversary of Bioshock this year.
That's wild.
But yeah, so it's not. It's more than just like here's a cutscene. Cut. We're going back to gameplay because I feel that like something like God of War is doing something. I don't know if you know about God of War, the 2018 remake. It's all one shot. The game is about 25 hours and it never cuts once.
Oh shit!
It's one single shot, and so that is I think that's more speaking to like the blending of cutscene. What is cutscene? What is gameplay? But this Bioshock I think goes beyond that in a Matrix almost fashion.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So for me, a part of like I also kind of like lump this in a little bit with my movie watching as well. Replayability or rewatchability is really important to me because I can play a great game, right? But at the end of the day, it's like I don't want to play and be like, well, that was a one-timer now because I know how it ends or I know what it is. And I'm also not talking about collectibles. Collectible games can go fuck themselves. I'm not here to be like, collect these 300 things, eat shit. I don't want to do that. There's nothing I hate more than getting into a game and seeing something. It's like, I can't get that. It's like, oh, you don't have the right power yet. You got to come back in a couple hours and remember that this thing exists and where it is so that you can get it, so that you could be whatever. I'm like, eat shit. The Arkham Knight games, like, man, that was the worst. I hated that. Playing Super Mario Odyssey for the first time just recently. I'm like, there's a moon on a platform. I don't know how to get that. I'm probably just bad at the game, but it frustrates me. I'm like, I just want to play the game and move on. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, hey, let's go back and get all these things because I don't collect things. That's not what I do. But I'm talking about enjoying a game so much. Like one of the games I replayed a lot is Divinity Original Sin 2. I love It's a great role-playing game. It's awesome because you can craft your characters so many different ways. It's just a ton of fun. It's a very enjoyable game. I love that game. But also, I really enjoyed Bioshock Infinite. I haven't replayed it since I beat it. I want to. I've also found a lot of other games that I want to play. But the idea of being able to go back and being like, hey, I want to play this game. Does that play a big factor to you at all? Or does that matter? Or what do you think?
No, not at all. And in fact, there are just too many games to play. And right now, like I'm kicking myself because I have very little left in the Halo Infinite campaign. And I want to finish it because February... Well, actually, end of January, we have this new Pokemon game coming out. It is we talked about it on the podcast forever the other day. But long and short, it is the Breath of the Wild version of Pokemon, right? So that is happening. Then we've got like the next game from the Dark Souls creator, Elden Ring. And we've got the February is this just month that enough games are releasing that if you got all of the like big hitters, you probably didn't need another video game to release all of 2022. Is how at least to me, like kind of how it feels like. And so I am trying to beat this Halo Infinite campaign before any of that hits the fan. I'm fucking playing Horizon Zero Dawn because the story's so good. And I kind of wish it wasn't so good because I don't want to spend my time replaying it. But like something keeps drawing it to me. Replayability is important to me in the sense that I want a game to linger with me. I don't want to end a game and feel like, oh, thank God that's done, right? I want to end a game and be like, I want to start that up right away again. Last of Us Part 2 was one of those games like last year. Mm-hmm. If I do get to the end of a game, and so to be honest, as much as I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, there was like just the ending was just long enough that by the time I was actually done with the game, I was like, okay, I never need to play this game again, but I still loved that game. So yeah, I think replayability is important in the sense that I want to be left wanting more. That being said, as much as I tell myself, oh, I'll go back and replay this. There are so many games that I've told myself, oh, I'll go play this for the first time, and I never get around to doing it. So if I'm not doing that, there's very little chance I'm going to go and replay something. And someone brought up Dying Light 2, which is one of these February games that's coming out. It's a zombie game. The developer recently came out and said that to do everything in the game, it'll take you 500 hours to complete.
That's insane.
That's dumb.
Now this is it. This is including all the side quests. Also, that game has multiple endings and different paths you can take. So it's also including replayability in that sense, right? Like, replaying and taking a different ending and stuff like that. That is something I not interested in really. And, even something like that, where there is more than just like, hey, this is a great experience. Games saying, hey, you can have a different, you could go take a different path or what have you. I'm very unlikely to go and actually do that,
Yeah, that's fair.
There's just too much that's being cranked out. Too much good stuff. Yeah,
it's too much.
Would you say that we're in I feel like we've talked about this in the podcast before with being like with all the streaming services and everything. Just before these streaming services really hit their stride and kind of became like the place to go, when we had Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Mad Men and those kind of shows, I felt like we were in the golden age of the TV series again. And I think the streaming services have carried that through, but I think we're getting a little diluted now. Would you say that we're in or past or yet to come up to the golden age of gaming? Do you feel like we're hitting a high? Just based on how much shit is coming out in 1 month,
That's really interesting. I've never really thought about it. And what's really, if you look at a bunch of other things, like golden ages are like usually like the first, right? Like it's usually like, like if you look at something like comics, right? Like the eras, right? The golden age era is like the 40s to 60s. when those are coming out, and then Silver Age is like 70s and Bronze and so forth. And so I've never really thought about the golden age of gaming. I think that there is a ton of stuff. Like, yes, there is more stuff in contention for greatness every year. Right. But one of the cool things is that, yeah, At No Arena says we're in an indie golden age, but actually that's really interesting because I feel like that is an easier one to answer when we're talking about indie games specifically. And I was going to bring up indie games when we're talking about like just overall golden age, because we are in an age where you have indie games, right? Games with like one person just making it that are up for contention against the God of Wars every year. And so I do think we are in kind of a golden age there where the ability to make video games is, greater than ever, creating art assets, coding things. We have these games like Dreams where they are video games that you play on like your PlayStation to make other video games. And like people can play your games in the game. So, and that's where I think like it's hard to compare to something like TV because it's hereditarily technology based, right? Games advance with technology. Not to say that TV doesn't, right? You get cheaper, easier ways to shoot something, right. But you're really looking at it from a standpoint of quality of script, right? As a screenwriter, you can have a really shit looking movie, but if it has a good script, it's good, right? And right. It doesn't work the other way around. Whereas with gaming, there's all this technical stuff that goes into it, and built and accessibility to that. Although, now we have iPhones to shoot films and stuff. So anyway, it's a complicated question. But At No Arena brings up something. He says we're in an indie golden age. And I actually don't think we are anymore. And maybe it even speaks to the accessibility of all this tech that I feel like 4 years ago, like 2014, let's say 2014 to 2018, that was an indie golden age, where we had this beautiful marriage between accessibility of these developer tools to make these games and mastery and an artistry going into them. And it felt like every indie game that was coming out and people talked about was a slam dunk. And it was hard to find someone that was speaking ill to it or didn't love it in some way or another. And I feel like we're having this, talking about like how much shit is getting pumped out, not that I think it's fantastic the more people can make games, but I do feel like, last year, for example, even though people loved this game, it's this game called Death's Door. It's a top down kind of hack and slash thing. You play this raven with a sword. A lot of people loved it. And I feel like a lot of years I would have loved it too, but I didn't really vibe with it. I actually felt it quite derivative. And I felt like previous indie games had done what it was trying to do better. Sure. And I feel like we are finding some of that now. And, games that I would have looked at a couple of years ago if you told me, yeah, this publisher's making it, this developer is making it, this small indie game, I would have been like, that is a lock for a really good game that's going to score really good reviews. And I feel like we're getting less of that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But, talking about a golden age where, it's just the right mix of amount of content and quality. I think we've passed that when it comes to indies, especially, for sure. And definitely in AAA. So, yeah,
I think that I think the parallels that you can draw between film or TV, any sort of video production in that realm with the iPhone and with it's similar in the sense that it's become you had these gatekeepers you used to have to go through, and you had to rent really expensive equipment, and you had to know how to cut actual film, physical film, and the barriers of entry just were so high. And now with things like this, and the 13 now has cinema mode, and it's getting so much easier to make it look like what the big dogs used to do. And I feel like it sounds like, at least with indie games, because the technology is becoming I could sit here and I could bang out. I know nothing about video games, and I could probably download some software that would allow me to bang out a game, and I could just throw it out there, almost like when YouTube first came around, and it was just this cacophony of everyone's putting up videos. It's to regulate itself a little bit.
It's funny you bring this up because I know you wanted to talk about my 3D printer. This is a perfect opportunity to talk about it. I love this thing, and it's because it's speaking to exactly what I feel like we're talking about. For example, if you see over here, actually, let me turn off my faux blur so you can see it better. So I have this wall of Power Rangers action figures. Huge Power Rangers fan, like my original fandom, pretty much. And where are we? Oh, it's not the control. Sorry, one sec. All right, so you can see them better there.
Green Ranger all the way.
He's right there.
Nice.
So I have them. So these guys over here are attached on these plastic things to hold them up, so they're in the midair. And I 3D printed the thing to hold them to the frame of the shelving unit. And over there, I have my backpack that I 3D printed a hook that was specifically designed, specifically for that backpack. And then we got our dog this bull retrieval toy. So it's a big, it looks like Eve from WALL-E.
Oh, nice.
With its head chopped off, right? And its bottom, it's just the middle there. And you drop a ball in it and it shoots out because he loves chasing after his ball. And so I was like, cool, we'll just automate this process. But he's a little scared of it because when the motor kicks in and stuff like that, it's really loud. So he kind of doesn't want to get near it. He just wants to go chase the ball. And so what we've been doing is we've been trying to give him treats near it so that when he try and drop the ball in. And I 3D printed this little shelf that sits in the machine that we can just put, because the machine is like a bowl. So you can't leave a treat in there.
Right.
But I 3D printed this little shelf that can sit there. And I'm just thinking of oh my God, all these things that I would need to buy this stupid little attachment for, or this, that, and the other. I can just make that at home now. And it kind of blows my mind. And when I was a kid, I remember my parents asking me, one Christmas, what did I want for Christmas? And I told them I wanted an action figure machine. And to me, this thing existed in the late 90s, okay? And to me, it existed, and it was, I would draw a picture, and then I would put it in the machine, and it would make an action figure of that drawing. And I was convinced...
You're a prophet.
I was convinced that would be a thing. It wasn't at the time, but now it kind of is. I can't just print a whole action figure with motion in one go. Right. But I could design something, and I could make each of the individual articulated parts, and I could easily build it. Yeah. And I just was surprised when I was doing custom even something as simple as this, or the hook, or even the shelf thing. I was just stunned how easy the 3D modeling tools were.
Really?
It was so into it. Yeah, it's called 3D Builder. I think it is a Microsoft product. And I was like, well, this is going to be a piece of shit. Every other Microsoft product on the planet. But it's surprisingly intuitive, shaping and molding things. And, it's crazy how easy a lot of this stuff has become.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and this thing is only $200. It's so cheap.
You're kidding me?
Yeah, only $200 for a decent 3D printer.
Okay,
$200.
That's a really good deal. I know they were really expensive, so I think obviously they've come down in price now these days. So that's
something
awesome.
like this would have been $3,000 10 years ago for sure. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's really fucking cool.
Well, way to go, Tom. Way to be, inventive. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
That sounded really condescending.
Oh,
did we just lose him?
Fuck you, Doug. That could not have been. Well, way to go, Tom. Way to be, inventive. Boop.
Huh. So how are you doing, Justin?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing, man?
I'm great.
Cool.
This has been really good. This has been a really good conversation.
Yeah. We're streaming, right?
Uh-huh. We're streaming.
We're sure it's recording?
Yep.
It wouldn't have been a mind gap without a technical thing.
No. The good thing is, I don't think that was our problem. So.
Like, you didn't kick him out.
Nope.
Okay, that's good.
Nope.
That's good.
Crit goes, he said, well, you know what? Fuck you.
While we're getting him back, I want to address something that's been going on in the chat here, in that you've finally gotten called out for your hatred of Legend of Zelda.
Here's the thing.
You are on record for a long time saying that that's one of the worst video games that was ever created.
Here's what I'll say. First Zelda, totally cool. Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, cool. I'll even give Zelda 2 a bit of a pass on the Nintendo. Beyond that, I lost track of Zelda. I never had an N64, so I never played Ocarina of Time, and then I played a little bit of Twilight Princess on the Wii, but I never finished it. It's just I've lost it. So I have no idea.
I celebrate the entire library of and the whole canon of the Zelda franchise. So I think it is it's flawless, and I have loved it ever since day one.
Yeah. Onions and Zelda. Doug hates them both. Thanks, Hobbs. Nice to see you, buddy. Does he know he's gone? I just sent him a message on
you don't know if he knows he's gone.
On Discord.
Yeah.
So what about the one in Switch? What are we talking about the one in Switch?
What do you feel about that, Doug?
Talking about Breath of the Wild. I haven't played it. I heard it's great.
Before people go nuts, like I feel like we're right at the precipice of potentially people like shelling out money and actually.
Hey, sorry about that.
Look who's back.
Sorry about that. I was closing like windows because I hate having tabs open.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I have to like execute them when they crop up, and I accidentally closed out of this one. It was surprisingly frustrating trying to get back in.
No
anyway, sorry
worries.
about that.
It's totally fine. It was actually pretty perfect because it sounded like I was being super condescending to you, and then you just like pieced out. And I'm like, oh, my bad.
After Doug said, "Oh, well, good for you for being
good
so
for you for being so," and you're just like, boop.
Like, oh,
can you imagine?
I was not a fan of that compliment.
I mean, that sounds like if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be a clip for this week. I think that's just going to be, that'll be a good one. So
we'll talk about it later, but please, just for the chat, don't send me any Zelda things. We'll talk later about why.
Don't buy me anything, says
please
Justin.
Don't waste your money on that.
Well, as we're kind of nearing the end of the show here, as we start kind of heading towards the wrap-up stuff, I wanted to quick get your insight on some stuff that's happened on Twitch recently, over the last couple of days, which involved some of the more high-profile Twitch users streaming copywritten stuff that doesn't belong to them on their streams. The bigger one was Pokimane. Was just straight up streaming Avatar: The Last Airbender on her stream, just straight up episodes. Another one, Disguised Toast, was streaming Death Note. Hassan was streaming MasterChef, and we've talked about
his copyright claim turned out to be false, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they Twitch said this was an incorrect copyright claim, and that it was just some random person that made the claim versus like Fox,
I have thoughts and opinions on this.
Sure.
We've talked about piracy in the past, and I fucking hate this. I hate that people are doing this. It drives me nuts because this is also a really bad thing for Twitch. It was like when they were doing before with their music.
Speaking of that 3D printed hook, it just fell off the wall.
Was that the hook?
By the way, guys, good quality stuff comes out of this. It's all good. Don't worry about it. I've just when Twitch was like totally cool with people just playing music during their streams, right? In fact, they were encouraging it. They're like, use Spotify, play music, and then finally, someone in the music business was like, "What are you doing? You can't play our shit on your streams."
That's interesting. So you are not. You are for stricter copyright law, or at least stricter copyright enforcement, and not being able to share content.
I'm a stick in the mud. I'm lawfully good when it comes to this, where I'm just like, listen, you don't own this stuff. you can't just play it like that. I did a brief stint as a music investigator for the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, where I would go into bars and clubs who were playing music without a license, and I basically would rat them out because that's how cool I am. Yeah. But I'm a big,
admits he was a narc.
I was a total narc. I was a music narc. But I grew up. My original passion was music. I wanted to be involved in the music industry. I went to grad school for it. It's working out great. I really cared a lot about that, and I was a user of Napster back in the day. Prolific use of that. But I realized also I haven't created a lot. But if I did create something, it would really bother me if someone just took what I created and then just used it. And in worst case situation,
like the music industry,
exactly. Or if they just exactly,
like and that's my thing with it. We're gonna have very diametrically opposed views to this.
Cool.
And so look, I will say this: if like, for example, an example of very uncool taking someone else's content and reusing it is what we're seeing with artists' art being stolen in NFTs.
Oh, my God.
Stealing people's artwork, putting them up as NFTs. Really fucking fucked up because outside of whatever, I do not want to get into an NFT conversation right now, but however you feel about those, put that aside. But, artwork like that, not only are you posing it as this is an original that I have made and I'm profiting off of it, usually it's just a one-to-one thing. It is someone's artwork. With all of this, and I used to be someone who was like, fuck piracy, fuck stealing, like all of this stuff, like if you want to call it stealing, because at this point I actually don't consider it stealing anymore. Because the thing is that it's the music industry that has stolen the work. It is the entertainment industry that has stolen the work from the creator not because that they, the creator unwillingly entered a contract or something like that, but they have you by the balls so much that, that the percentages, an artist has to make on something like Spotify before they see any amount of money. The people, the producers of and creators of, MasterChef or something like that, they're getting paid very well. But the people who are actually making the content are not. And on top of that, especially when it comes to Twitch, and going back to that, like say Unranked Podcasts, right? We do Patreon content like you. If someone was putting that out there for free, I would be pretty upset because, it's not like it's bringing in a ton of money, but like we are creating it. It is our thing. And there is no third party leeching off of that involved. So, there's a difference between that. And I think streaming something that is owned by Universal Music Group or is owned by Fox. Secondly, the other thing is that regarding the usage of it on Twitch, I feel like it falls under something called fair use, a very broad definition of fair use. But I do think that, and what fair use basically means, and this is very reductive to anyone, I'm sure you guys are aware of it, and I'm sure you are very aware of what fair use is, Doug, as someone who has been in this industry. It basically means that if you are commenting, critiquing, if you are building on top of, in a way, and analyzing the content directly, you can use it like images in an article on a website, right? They have to fall under fair use. You can't just steal something, you can't just like grab any image. You have to give a purpose. You have to be talking about the image, if it's anything like this. And I feel that, like, especially with music on Twitch, if I've got music in the background of someone's stream, like, I'm not listening to that and being like, oh, cool, I'm getting one over on, I don't have to pay for this music. More likely, if someone's playing a song that I really like in the background, or even if they're just streaming the song straight up, right? And it's a radio station that's looping 24/7 with pirated music. I'm not like, this is a great way to listen to the music, because it's just random or someone's talking over it. I'm more likely to be like, I loved that song. It would, a lot of artists, when they're performing on stage, they play music between sets. And there are so many bands that I found because I'll just be at a set and I'll be like, that was a great song. Let me Shazam it. Let me find it. And then I become a fan, and I do engage and use a streaming service to funnel money to there. The TV meta is a little different because we don't engage with TV content the same way we do with music, where we're watching the same episode over and over again. I mean, you might do that, but music is meant to be repeated and re-listened to. So there's more of an incentive to leave that, take that knowledge, and go find it somewhere else on like a viable platform. The TV narrative is a little different. But again, to me, it's kind of like watching Pokimane watch and talk about Avatar is very different than just sitting down and watching Avatar yourself. And especially a show like Avatar, if I was watching Pokimane doing that, I would be like, I'm going to stop watching Pokimane doing this, and I'm going to just go watch the show because of the merit of and the quality of that content. The other, sorry, I'm just rambling here.
No.
But the other aspect of it, so I don't actually really see a problem with it, because again, it's not like it's the creator of Avatar who is like, or any of the writers that worked on that are like, fuck Pokimane. It's Viacom. It's this company that has people that run it that make tens of millions of dollars, who are protecting IP for the sole reason of making a bigger profit and making more money, to enrich themselves by tens of millions of dollars. And that motivation makes it very hard for me to care about anyone breaking copyright. And then on the flip side, the reason that I'm kind of more for it, not that like I'm going to do that or I think everyone should start doing it, but I kind of like the idea of Twitch streamers like testing the waters, right? Like we had it with like the hot tub and pool stuff as meta that happened, right? Of like that. What is acceptable here, and kind of pushing the company to be, yes or no on like what is good to go. And so I kind of like that rebellious nature of it, of like tempting fate. And now the one downside I feel to it is that people are talking about like smaller content creators, jumping into the narrative, the meta to try and get views and then getting screwed. I definitely understand that argument. The other thing though about that argument is that I don't think it's true. I don't think you are getting smaller streamers getting penalized. Maybe medium streamers who have, quite a big following that might attempt it. But I'm telling you right now, if I just put like my TV shows on my Twitch would never find it. And Twitch would not give a damn and wouldn't actually send me. No one's going to copyright strike me. So the only people big enough who I think are going to get copyright stricken are also like insulated enough that like Twitch isn't going to ban them because they make the money. Pokimane makes Twitch so much money. She's never getting, banned. And if you're small enough, like you're going to get away with it. My friend was talking about how like there's this Twitch channel that just like has for, I don't know at this point, but for months at that time, had just been playing movies on repeat, just different films. They didn't do anything about that. And the opening of my, the opening music for my Twitch stream, like the 10 minutes where it's just a video saying stream starting, it's a remix of all of Daft Punk's music. And Twitch hasn't done a damn thing about it. But again, I don't think anyone is there, like everyone that has noticed that music has been like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's this remix by this duo, and people have gone and checked out their stuff. So that's just kind of where I fall on it.
Nice. Justin, What do you think about it?
About what? There's a lot covered about specifically on Twitch or pirating in general.
Well, kind of like based on the situation, if someone's streaming, TV shows Because that's the thing too, is you mentioned transformative stuff, Tom. Pokimane is not doing anything transformative. She's literally sitting there watching the show, and other people are watching her watch the show. So this is not like
not Mystery Science Theater 3000ing it. She's
Nope.
not commenting on it and making jokes or anything like
if
that.
anything, she might be reacting like, "Oh wow," or whatever. But there's not like she's not pausing and being like, "See, the Marxist angle here is that Ba Sing Se is really, a cover for, communist Russia or whatever." She's not like trying to break it down or anything. She's just watching it, like got a cozy blanket on, watching it, just streaming it, and it's like, watch me watch this show.
Look, you and I align a little bit when it comes to the concept of like pirating and being more like the part that I don't like is when it's unfair for the people who have created the content, the artists themselves. Like I think they get dicked, top and down, left and right. It's just when you're an artist, you're spreading your butthole and saying, "Come on in," like you get dicked. I do agree with Tom in the sense that it's the company, the record labels, the production the people at the higher end. They're the ones who are really profiting off of this, so they're dicking the artists just as much as anyone else. I, from a personal standpoint, have never really had an issue with pirating. I say, play the music on your stream. I don't really give a shit. If you want to sit and watch TV and someone watches you do that. Cool. You've got enough charisma to get people to sit and watch you watch TV. Go for it. You do what you got to do. It doesn't bother me from that perspective. Like if someone were watching, was it Pokimane?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pokimane. Watching one of our films, hopefully they would go, "Oh, I actually liked what was in the background." When I'm not looking at the streamer. Let me go, find that kind of to what Tom was saying. So I think that I think that's more where I'm aligned with is like, it really doesn't bother me. If I personally am losing a shitload of money, that's where I'm going to start getting bothered.
And it's really funny because Hassan, being one of these Twitch streamers that, again, his copyright claim was found to be just not actually made by the copyright holder. So he's gone back to doing the reactions to MasterChef. And the other thing with the MasterChef one is it's not like the episode that's airing live then and there. It's like older, seasons. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender, been out for as long as Bioshock has at this point. Those creators now have their own studio within Nickelodeon and Viacom and are making untold amounts of spin-offs. So it's not like that show is at risk of not having an audience. It has an audience. It's had a huge audience for a while. But the other side of it is that, something that Hassan talked to, because I'm a fan of his content, is the fact that like a lot of people on YouTube take his content and repackage it and make channels where it's clipping him out. And that was actually how I found him. It was one of these fans of his that made their own fan account with his content. And then I was like, this is great. I'm going to the source. And I became a fan of Hassan's content. And now I watch primarily his YouTube because I think that whoever he's hired to edit is doing a much better job than a lot of these like fan accounts are. But he does 8 hours of streaming a day. I do not watch all of it. I just watch the clipped out stuff. But there are some things that pop up where I'm like, oh, he didn't clip this out, but one of his other fans did. Let me go watch his thoughts on this and him talking about this latest thing that, he didn't put out on his own channel. And so I do feel like there is like a symbiotic relationship there where, and those channels make money. Some of those other fan channels are actually like partnered with YouTube. And like people have their careers based off of him, free content that they, he is happy with them taking, and they make money. Plus people become fans of his and then go check out his stuff. So, and especially with music, the TV thing is different for sure. But like, I'm never like, listen to someone talk, there's music in the background and being like, this is the best way to listen to this song. And I'm never going to go, look up whatever band it is or what have you.
Yeah. No, you make a good point. I think there's definitely something to be said for discoverability, right? Like, I've gone on YouTube, listened to music, heard things and bought an album, based on the stuff that I've seen and whatever. And there's something to be said for having a source that you trust, recommend something to you and be like, oh, cool, I've never heard of that. Maybe I'll go check it out. I think at the core of this, the crux of it is, you're absolutely right. Like, Viacom is the one that's set to lose out on this, right? Because they own the property to whatever this is. But my issue is that I think it's more just a fundamental concept of like something that you made and you own is being used by someone else without your permission. And that's, it's a multinational conglomerate, gross corporate entity. If you take that out of it, the core of it still rubs me the wrong way. Of someone's going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go.
It's a really big core, though.
It is.
It is the core. It's almost everything, you know?
Yeah.
It's, you know, again, it would be different if I made a web series that I put out a Patreon for, and someone, you know, a huge Twitch streamer was watching that, and I was losing out on revenue for myself. Mm-hmm. That is different. But that's the thing. It is different from these situations where it is Viacom, Fox, you know, Funimation, and you know, those you know, I don't think you can remove that element from it because it is almost the entire point. Jervis does bring up a good point about when an artist in the chat for people listening later. So, what about when an artist says someone is using it for something that doesn't align with their values? Like recent artists complaining about politicians using the music unlicensed for their campaigns. This is where, like, you know, as much as I am like, go for it, I understand why we have copyright laws, because if we start, you know, unfortunately, this company is run on a really bullshit system of like, well, there's precedent for that in the past, so we just need to keep doing that, as if like we haven't undone so much precedent that has been set by this country. You know, so if it's like, cool, yeah, like Hassan can watch MasterChef, so Trump can use, you know, Billy Joel's music for this campaign rally. Unfortunately, like in a legal way, like shit like that would happen, and that's really fucked up. You know, here's the thing: is like when it comes to stuff like that, who used? I think it was Trump who used like "Eye of the Tiger," and like that artist was like "fuck you" or whatever. I mean, you know, yeah, like if that person wants to come out and say like, fuck, do not use my music or I will sue or whatever because of a moral thing. You know, again, I think it's a different situation and I think there is value to that. But at the same time, it's like, all right, if Trump is using my music, I'm probably a millionaire artist anyway, or have, you know, that one time that it's playing, you know, I think almost the message of like, I do not approve of this going out is the point in a situation like that, rather than like, I'm missing out on royalties or, you know, you didn't pay for that play. You know, anyway. Yeah. So that's my take on that.
I think that's a little bit more where I line of that. I feel less, I don't mind when I hear like, oh, you know, Fox or whomever or BMG went after this, they're suing these people for streaming this or doing whatever. That's where I'm just like, fuck you guys, because, you know, you didn't make this. You just, sure, you put the money up to put this music out, but you got your money back from that. You didn't make this. You shouldn't dictate where it goes from that point forward. I think if the artist sounds off on it, that's where I'm a little more like, if an artist comes out and said, I don't want anyone using my music to stream, then I'd be like, cool. So that's probably, we'll nix that. Like if that artist were to come after a streamer or say, hey man, cease and desist, or I'm going to draw a lawsuit up against you, that I would be way more on board with than big companies. Because
if the copyright claim is coming from the person, that is definitely different. And then the other end of it is that, you know, for example, when I was doing the talking about, you know, on my latest stream, and I'm actually going to put up a VOD of the experience at youtube.com/unranked podcast. But it's me just talking about the games of 2020 and what my thoughts were, and like, am I excited for them, vice versa. And, you know, I had music just playing in the background, and it is a royalty-free, you can stream this thing called Stream Beats, which is made by this guy called Harris Heller.
Love him.
And his whole thing is the Hassan thing, where it's like, use this, because every time like you play it on Spotify, like I'm getting a little bump, and like people are finding the streams, the songs and all that, and like he's building almost this next stage of his streaming empire off of Stream Beats because of the revenue that he's pulled in from that. And, you know, one of the things that he brought up, which I think is also very pertinent to this, is that there is no workaround for people to pay money, right? So you've got people, you know, playing off of Spotify, right, feeding into their stream, right? So it's only counting that one play, that one, you know, song play for that person. It's not counting for the thousands of people listening to it while someone else is talking over it. But, you know, if the industry and Twitch were to come together and figure out a solution where it's like, cool, you want to play music on here? Here's a subscriber. Here's a streaming subscription, and it counts for a certain amount of plays. It's a little bit more premium, but probably if you're using that, you're at the point where you are raking in enough money from Twitch to offset that cost and that be useful to you. But it's just kind of like the system being like, fuck you, like we're going to shut you down, and not providing a solution that ultimately would be beneficial for everyone involved, would be beneficial for the music industry, would be beneficial for streaming services, would be beneficial for Twitch for them to have a solution. But right now they don't seem interested in actually like doing any of that, and more just like figuring out ways, like the fact that video games, you know, and again, video games, copyrighted content.
True.
Like technically shouldn't really be able to, you know, by the law, by the precedent, shouldn't be able to do that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like Guardians of the Galaxy has a streamer mode that takes out all of its amazing music because it's got all of these, you know, it's like the movies, right? It has a 30 track list soundtrack of like the best 80s hits that are awesome, and that you can switch a mode that takes that music out and it puts in like generic, we made this for the game, you are allowed to stream this. Like that built into a video game is a very stupid solution to that problem, and
it's a Band-Aid.
Just points out to some of the ridiculous aspects of like copyright law, and the way that it is treated and handled. Like it's, you know, because it's me talking over the characters, talking over the music. But if I don't turn that toggle on, I'm screwed. You know what I mean? Like if I'm a big enough streamer where I get a hit. So it's just like, come up with a solution. Like it'll make you guys money. Businesses are so fucking stupid.
I agree. I think a collaboration is the best thing. If people were to be like, hey, listen, I don't want you doing this because this is mine, but what if we found a way to partner where we can find a way for you to stream this stuff that we own because people want to see it, you want to do it, we all benefit, let's figure it out. I think that's a much better way to do it. I'm all for it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, since you're in the headspace of doling out really practical advice to giant conglomerates, I feel like this is the perfect time to segue.
You got the questions, we got the answers. All you do is ask. Practical, 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 practical. Ask Practical Doug.
Time again for Ask Practical Doug. For those of you who don't know, there's a tiny Doug that lives inside the larger Doug, and the tiny Doug is known as Practical Doug. Practical Doug guides Doug on most of his life's decisions, and just in general in life. And we have viewers and listeners who submit questions for Ask Practical Doug. So if you would like to get your question answered by Ask Practical Doug, you can on any of our socials or on our Discord channels, or if you've got our phone numbers, if you're lucky enough to have those, you can text us. If it's on socials, hashtag Ask Practical Doug. And today's is from our superfan Zinni. And I forgot to give Zinni this earlier. That's for you, Zin. What is your take, Practical Doug? What is your take on hats? Solely for warming purposes or for fashion as well?
What a great question, Zenny, and thank you for asking. As a man with clear hair, hats,
like see-through hair.
It's just I have hair. It's just it's clear. You know, you just can't see it. That's why I tell my daughter all the time. She's like, "You don't have hair." I go, "Yeah, I do. It's clear."
Kids are dumb.
You know, hats are important to me. Because when it's sunny, it protects it from getting scorched. When it's cold, my head gets cold really, really, really quick. So it's very practical use for me. You know, it can be fashionable too, hopefully it is. I grew up, with a dad who was a farmer who was like, put this on. It'll keep you dry in the rain. And then it's the most gross abomination thing you can imagine, but it works. I'm like, it could definitely be both. I would prefer it. A hat in its core is practical, but there's nothing that says it can't be fashionable.
No.
I mean, I never really worn a lot of hats, but once my hair went clear, I definitely had to. It was a rookie move to be outside in the sun without a hat. I was like, well, this is gonna be bad. I'm gonna have a scorched head. So, yes. How about you guys? Do you wear hats? Are you hat connoisseurs?
Tom?
Well, we're firmly in beanie season right now, for sure. Which is a level of, I would say, leaning more on the functional side. But that being said, I think especially with the especially in this pandemic era, right, we're seeing comfy core, right, being this thing of like, yo, you can be stylish, you can go out in a nice pair of sweats, right, partnered maybe with a sweatshirt and a beanie. Like, that is now a great look. And so I feel like the beanie has crept up on the fashion scale of it. That being said, personally, I only really wear hats for a practical reason. I have quite a big head. I think most hats look kind of ridiculous on me. So personally, yeah, it is more of a function. And a beanie, definitely, like, especially now it's very cold outside, like, definitely need one of those. But I think in general, like, a mix of both, I think, is a good place to be in.
I share that pain with you about the big head thing.
We all have big heads. It's okay.
It's a real problem. Milos used to say, your mother is a saint. But hats have always looked a little odd on me as well. I don't know what it is with my hair. Even if I don't have anything in it, if I put a hat on, my hair is just fucked the rest of the day. So if I choose to wear a hat, that hat is on until I come home and I am relaxing. Like, that is, I don't know what it is, but I like wearing hats every once in a while, but it has to be a commitment.
Tell you what, I don't miss those days of being like, what does my hair look like? Because my clear hair doesn't show up as anything is wrong. So
a very small part of me, I do like having hair. There's a very small part of me that was like, I wonder, should I just shave it and just kind of, then I can wear any hat I want.
Dude,
it'll be a whole new.
If you shaved your head, we'd be like brothers.
Well, and then they put that, the filters on instant media and social media. The filters are getting really good, and so there was one that showed you what did you look like if you were bald, and I look just like Doug.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I did it, and I sent it to Doug. I said, "Hey, man, are we related?" And then,
yes.
It turns out we are. We did a blood test and everything.
My sister sent me a photo recently that was a similar thing, but it was her with a beard, and she sent me a screenshot. And she was like, "People have said my whole life that we look alike, and I've never believed them until now."
Until you put on the beard, and now you're like, "Now I see it."
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there you have it.
It's amazing how much just a little bit of hair can change your look, though.
Oh, 100%.
It's wild, yeah. But there you have it. Hats, both practical and fashionable. And now the throwdown.
Welcome to the throwdown.
All right, Doug.
All right.
What? This had to have been changed in the middle of us talking.
You think so?
I feel like there's no way that this is just super serendipitous.
Well, if you're not familiar with the throwdown, it's essentially an opportunity for fans of our podcast to put together two things that enter a ring of death and only one can leave. And here we are with our two for this week. Justin, hit the drum roll.
You got it.
This week's throwdown is Tommy Oliver, the Green Power Ranger, versus full DC overpowered Batman. No,
that is so funny.
Very, very funny.
So I'll say this much about.
So, but they said the green, because this takes you to Tommy Oliver's page, and you've got to choose old Tommy, human, human DT, ninja, green, white, red. So I'm going to click on green. We're going to go with that.
Oh my God. That is so much.
Yeah, he's been a number of Rangers. You've also got to think about Lord Drakon, an alternate universe Tommy, who was introduced in the comics, who never... So in the comics, he's evil at first, or in the TV show, right? Evil at first, under Rita Repulsa's spell, and then gets freed and becomes a good Ranger. Lord Drakon, an alternate universe version of Tommy, who never becomes good, and basically ends up ruling the planet. And gets all of the powers from all of the Power Rangers through time and space. So if we're talking about him, I feel like it's game over for Batman.
Well, I feel like any character that can summon a giant robot, I mean, has a significant advantage over an overpowered Batman. I mean, Batman may have EMP abilities or some shit like that in his back pocket, but I mean, physically. Because, again, we're under the assumption, too, that these two don't know the battle's going to happen. Because if you give Batman prep, there's probably something he could come up with.
Yeah, and that's the thing about... that's the thing about Batman.
When they're saying full OP Batman, like, with this is Batman post-Flashpoint that we're looking at. And there's base Hellbat armor and God of Knowledge, which that seems... Is that true OP Batman, or are we just doing the base post-Flashpoint Batman?
Is the God of Knowledge thing when he sits on the throne and knows about who the Joker is and shit? Is that what that's referring to? I didn't know he got a power boost from that.
I didn't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that character is a tier 9B, Doug.
Batman pays his taxes. The Power Rangers don't pay taxes because they're meant to be teenagers in high school, so they don't have an income.
There are
in fact, if you think about it, Power Rangers, right? Driven by the youths, right?
Yeah.
Donating their time and experiences for the common good versus a capitalist billionaire. This really is a dichotomy between socialism and capitalism right here. I don't know. I feel that And then you got to think about the character brutality, because one is from a kids' TV show, and I mean, depending on which version of Batman you go with, if you're talking about this new one, the Robert Pattinson Batman, looks pretty brutal. He might be willing to push it a little further than.
Well, I don't know
than Tommy is the Green Ranger.
So we have a council of elders that decides these throwdowns, and what they've indicated to us is they're saying full DC OP Batman. So. Okay. I'm assuming that this is God of Knowledge Batman. And I mean, he is definitely in true DC fashion, they have straight OP'd him. So
I mean, his speed is massively hypersonic, massively faster than light.
Catch that, Tommy.
His lifting strength is unknown, overpowered and threw Superman and resisted the pull of an artificial black hole. Jesus, striking strength, but wall class. He can break a wall, apparently. So
I love how the council
up to solar system class, punched woman hard enough to send her crashing into a wall, can trade blows with Superman. Solar system class? Who makes these things? I part of me loves reading this stuff out because it doesn't make any sense. His striking strength is solar system class. Incapacitated new gods like Godfrey and Calabac and made Darkseid bleed with a punch.
I don't know if you're following what's going on in the chat right now.
Oh, there's a straight up.
The council may have tore itself asunder. A riff has happened.
Yeah. This is.
Whew, oh boy,
they're really going to the council's having trouble.
Do this. Let's try to bring a little bit of.
He has normal human weaknesses. Refuses to kill unless absolutely necessary, and is reluctant to use firearms due to childhood trauma. So. I mean, is the Green Ranger is he known to kill? Is that his jam? Is he willing to do that?
Drakon.
Shoot out of some putty patrol.
Here's the thing: if we're going up against this God of Knowledge Batman, I do think we need to be talking about alternate universe Tommy Drakon at his height, and now so spoilers for the comics. What ends up happening is that he starts absorbing all of the so he's evil, right? He never joins the Power Rangers. He ends up killing Rita Repulsa, so he doesn't have the same like penchant for not killing. So he is willing to kill Batman. And then on top of that, he is stealing the powers of the Rangers and adding them to his own. So he actually, here, let me actually show you the figure. So by the end of it,
I love this. If you're listening, we'll describe it to you.
He looks like this.
Whoa. Okay.
That's what the armor looks like.
Hold on. Okay.
Kind of this gold and black armor. Yeah, it's sick as fuck. By the end of it, he completely collapses the morphing grid, which is basically like the energy that holds the universe together, and creates his own universe where he is a god. So
this seems pretty comparable at that point then. I mean,
this seems pretty comparable, and he isn't held back from not killing. So
that's a big key. Batman does have his have that stupid code.
But he also has incredibly high intelligence. He's nigh omniscient. So he's precognition. He can predict the future in this state. So if he can predict the future, I would say for a character that also is super big on planning, if he can predict the future based on these stats, I think even though they're going to be tossed into a ring, he would anticipate that, right? That they'd be tossed into a death match, and therefore he would have a plan in place.
Well, didn't you say that he that the Lord Green Ranger was didn't you say what was that he like was on the edge of space-time, or he was like he
created his own universe, like basically like the universe collapsed and he created his own reality in which he was basically all of the power. Like it's funny because it's actually a really good storyline, because you find out that at the end of the day he just kind of wanted to be friends with the Power Rangers because they're all like, everyone loves him and they're all like his best friend, and they're all like hanging out and stuff. So that is the thing, is like, sure, he has precognition, but if it's Drakon and he's built this universe, like he can make Batman do it. Maybe Batman thinks he has precognition, but it's really Drakon in the background.
Yeah.
I just really kind of want the Green Ranger to win this one.
That's fair. I mean,
let's take God abilities out of it. Let's just take it back to Green Ranger versus Batman. Like,
no, I want to keep him. I want to keep him overpowered. I think that makes sense, because here's why. Well, if we take it back to normal, I think Green Ranger with his special abilities and what he has at his disposal, I think he defeats Batman. And I think God level, if Lord Drakon is creating a reality, I think that trumps what Batman has going. Even though Batman has a lot going for him, precognition doesn't mean anything if someone's warping your reality. Like exactly. So I'm going to give it to the Green Ranger regardless.
Yeah, I feel like even if he's not creating the reality, I mean, Batman can be as precog as he wants, but I just think Tommy's or Lord Drakon Noir has enough under in his little belt.
The other thing is I'm looking at these pictures of God of Knowledge Batman, right? And he's sitting in this chair, which is giving him the knowledge. Can he leave the chair? Because I feel like if he has to stay in the chair,
everyone pees, right?
He's pulling a Winnie the Pooh, and he's like, think.
Like, I'm not seeing an image where he's not sitting in this chair. So he seems pretty restricted with what he can move. Plus, honestly, at the end of the day, even if we're talking about OG Green Ranger, can anything beat the Dragon Zord? Like, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think if he's like down. And like a giant thing comes down, I mean, what's Batman gonna do?
Can we all also agree he held that the most awkward way possible every time he played it? I can't remember how it was.
This way, so it's underhand like this. Yeah, and it's funny because the figure that I have here, I'll bring him up. I'll grab him real quick.
This might be my favorite throwdown ever. We've got visuals here, guys.
And if you're listening, fuck you.
OG Green Ranger. And this actually, the hand on this one has the flute fingers, so the fingers are actually in playing. So, and yes, he holds it like this, like so. So he's holding it underhand.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll also say I do like the image of Batman sitting on the throne going, "No, you come here." Come here, just real quick before we just come here.
I predicted you would come to me.
Yeah, I did before we start.
I sent you an email before telling you to come right here, so I knew it would happen.
Closer? I can't hear. What's that? You need to come closer. All right, cool. So we're doing Grid Racer for the win!
Yes. Well, that was excellent, and I thought we, aside from being an expert in video games, an expert in Power Rangers also. Your knowledge helped us come to a conclusion, so thank you, Tom.
Did you guys know about, I don't know if you know about UFC, Christian, who does Unranked, who created Unranked, he created this podcast called UFC, and it's basically this, where they have a big bucket of names,
yes,
and they just pull them out at random, and like that's like the next episode.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And then they do that, and then it becomes a bracket, and then I think season 1, the Doctor from Doctor Who won. I can't remember, but yeah, if you like this, Christian does like a whole podcast.
That's amazing.
If you want more throwdown,
probably gonna have to check that out because that sounds amazing.
Think we will. Yeah, because we've thought about doing a bracket, but then we realized we've had 330 throwdowns now, each consisting of a minimum of 2 people, sometimes 3 to 5.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a hard bracket to manage. So.
Yeah, some of them are a little more ethereal. Well, Tom, this has been great. This is the part of the show where we basically, no one saw anything, no one heard anything. It's good. You can just 3D print another one. It's totally fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We basically just do recommendations. If there's anything that you've seen, heard, been listening to, been reading, anything that you think someone should check out, right now, please, by all means, recommend it.
This is probably going to be a very controversial one, but I loved the new Matrix.
Yes, yes, you did.
I adored Resurrections a lot. The Matrix was the movie that made me want to make movies, and so I have everything to thank to that film for where I'm at and the life path that I've gone on. And this movie spoke to the person I am now, I feel, and I know a lot of people don't like it, and I totally get that, and I think it's kind of the point of the film in a lot of aspects. But if you're someone who's like been hearing negative things and is like, I don't know, like a lot of people don't like this, I would enthuse you to check it out for yourself and see how you feel. But yeah, I loved it a lot. The other thing that I'm reading right now is The Creative Gene, which is a book by Hideo Kojima. It isn't who created Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding, and a bunch of other games as well, who I think is one of the most inventive creators alive right now. I don't think he is the best writer necessarily, or maybe the best storyteller, but I do think like his creativity like knows no bounds, kind of, and I think he's a genius in that regard. So he has this book called The Creative Gene, and it isn't about there's a prelogue that's kind of about his life, or a prelude, or a prologue, a combination of those two. That is about his life and why he's written this book, but it's actually like short stories and essays that have inspired him over the years. And so it's actually really interesting because I bought it thinking it was a memoir or an autobiography. And at first I was really disappointed when I was like, oh, this isn't like the story of his life, that he wrote. But it is I actually think the concept of like, here's all this stuff that like inspired me creatively. And it's just very interesting to look at it from that angle, and a very unique, I think, collection. So if people want to check that out. Oh my God. And one last thing, sorry.
No, please.
Huge fan as well of Junji Ito, who I also think is on that spectrum of like unbridled creativity. Japanese horror creator. He created Uzumaki. Gyo is another one of his books. You've probably seen memes. That meme where it's like this guy is like, "This is my hole. I was made for this." That's one of his books, which is about just like a wall shows up, and there's like human cutouts, like human shaped cutouts in them, and people start realizing that the cutouts are exactly their measurements, and people become like obsessed with them and start walking through the holes and never come back.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and Uzumaki, which was the first thing I read by him, which translates to spiral in English, is about a town that is obsessed with spiral imagery and slowly, like, it is unput down. It's like something I just couldn't put down.
Wow.
And I'm obsessed with his work, and he draws and writes all of his stories. It's just him. And yeah, so I recommend, even if you're not a horror fan, like if you are someone who is just like loves things that people have lit, like you are like, how the fuck did someone think of this?
That's amazing.
Like, someone came up with this concept. That's nuts. He is just that over and over and over again.
Well, you've got my interest. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Great recommendation. Justin, what do you got?
Completely opposite side of things. Something I know Doug absolutely loves, Tick, Tick, Boom on Netflix. A musical about the Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut. That was a very formative, Jonathan Larson was a very formative figure in Lin-Manuel's life and getting into musical theater, and it was very transformative for him. So this was a very, very deep personal story for Lin to take on. And the movie is, so before he wrote Rent, Jonathan wrote Tick, Tick, Boom, which is about him trying to write a musical before he turns 30 because he feels like a failure. And so it's kind of a meta thing. So Lin took that. Andrew Garfield plays Jonathan Larson, and it's part the play Tick, Tick, Boom, but then also taken into a narrative movie. So it's kind of this cool where you see some of the performance and then you see some of the performance come to life. It's pretty cool, and I really liked it. So I would recommend Tick, Tick, Boom on Netflix. Doug,
nice. I made an impulse purchase last weekend. I was looking for videos.
Buy a boat.
I did not. How dare you? How dare you? Boat is a depreciating asset. Don't buy it. Now, I was going through the movies on iTunes. I was just I like to go like every weekend to see if there's anything on sale. And I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, not on sale, just straight price. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to buy this. I bought it, watched it with Natalie and Jill. Natalie fucking loved it. And I really enjoyed it as well. I had extremely low expectations. Wow. I was poo-pooing all over the trailer when I saw it. I'm like, who cares? Who cares about Ghostbusters? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things I was just being grumpy about. I'm like, the trailer did not grab me at all. But I watched the movie and I was like, this was really fun. I really enjoyed it. The next morning, Natalie demanded to watch it again immediately as soon as she woke up. So take an almost 6-year-old's, perspective on it. She loved it. And I thought it was fun. It was a fun movie. So Ghostbusters Afterlife, check it out. You can buy it or don't stream it. I don't know, pirate it, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Because
for our next video game stream, Doug will be watching that. And
there you go. I'll be watching it. Come check it out.
Do the meta, dude.
Yeah.
I'll do the meta. Tom, this has been an absolute delight having you on here, man. And
thank you very much for having me.
We'd absolutely love to have you back. I feel like we could talk to you forever and ever and ever. So this was so much fun.
We almost did. We almost did.
Before we go, please, once again, tell everyone where they can find you and what they should watch.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me primarily, I would say, at twitch.tv/GreatBritom. GreatBritom. That is kind of the thing that I would love people to like go follow and check out, and it's the thing that like I love doing the most and want to grow the most. But please do go check out the Unranked podcast and it's YouTube, youtube.com/Unranked podcast. And then also like my writing and stuff on like Input and Inverse. Yeah, so that you'll if you search Great Britom, you'll find everything and just go follow those places. But the Twitch is the big one.
Go follow him on Twitch, you bastards. Dole out
yes,
those.
I am. Yeah, get me to do like another 3-minute plank.
There you go. Make it happen. He asked you for it. There you go. Go follow him on Twitch. He's enjoyable to watch. I highly recommend it. You can also find MindGap on all social medias at MindGap Podcast. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/MindGap Podcast. Like and subscribe. It means the world to us. Check us out. We live stream on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Central for the podcast and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central for the video game stream. And also don't forget to check out Justin online as well.
On Instagram and Twitter at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the online realm, you can check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Basically, where do you listen to podcasts? You can find us there. Subscribe to us, rate, review, like, all those things. The big one is sharing. Please, if you like an episode, copy the link, share it out to some people and say, hey, I like this. I think you might too. That goes a super long way. 2east8th.com/mindgap, and then just keep an eye on all of 2 East 8th stuff. February 1st, we are dropping Life and Debt of a Liberal Arts Major. It's finally coming out, and we're continuing to move forward on the feature film this year.
Yay! Super exciting. So go check that stuff out. Once again, Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Sorry, thanks.
No, you're good. No worries. And with that, I'll say, Justin, thank you.
Douglas, thank you.
Chat, thank you.
Listeners, thank you.
And you all have a dandy fucking week.
Mind Gap Podcast.